tonight. Occupy Spokane is encouraging public comment tonight during the city council meeting, and activists are now pushing to see Spokane police defunded. Also, Spokane not moving to phase 3 of reopening this week. We're going to hear from the health officer who explains why we haven't met the criteria and may not for a while. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for KREM 2 News at 5. I'm Whitney Ward at home, and my colleague Mark Hanrahan is there at the KREM 2 studios. Hi, Mark.
Hey, good evening to you, Whitney. Hope all's going well. A day after hundreds of demonstrators took to the streets of downtown Spokane for the Black Lives Matter protest, organizers now urging people to take their message to city leaders. KREM 2's Brandon Jones is standing by at City Hall tonight to explain. Brandon?
Yeah, Mark, as we speak, the City Council is moving out of their executive session and going into the public forum. Over the past 2 weekends, we've seen thousands of people come out in Spokane in protest in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. I've talked to Occupy Spokane, the NAACP, about what their next steps will be to enact change. These are the main organizers for these peaceful protests that we've seen, and they said they're ready to start here at the City Hall for their next actions. Although council members aren't physically gathered in the building for their weekly meeting, they do hold a virtual briefing that allows the public to listen and see what's on the agenda. Organizers are taking advantage of that access. So far, they've touched base with many of the city leaders, and they've been greeted with open minds that are willing to engage in conversations about some of their demands. Although they like what they hear, they told me that now isn't the time to step off the gas pedal. They're going to continue using their voices as long as they feel it's necessary. That includes a push using excess funding that may be going into law enforcement and switching those funds to mental health services and better relationships with the community. They believe that'll lead to better interactions with the public and police officers.
The conversations have been good. You know, hey, we understand. Hey, we're concerned. Hey, we're with you, right? And love that. And we've heard it before. Right? So what we're saying now is that, hey, do you understand? Do you hear us? That we mean it.
And how do we reallocate those funds into a peace force where peace officers are getting the training they need within mental health services to really help their community and not continually contribute to the war on the poor and overcrowded jails.
And as I mentioned, the public forum portion of the meeting has been pushed back a few times, but Occupy Spokane will be present and listening into the city council. You can't speak up during the forum, but it gives you a better understanding of what's going on in the city. And although they're using their voice and you know, getting active in the city hall meetings, that doesn't mean protests are necessarily over, but they want to be able to make sure their voice is heard in all aspects of the city. Live from downtown Spokane, Brandon Jones, KREM 2 News.
Brandon, thank you very much. Black Lives Matter protesters here and across the nation calling for cities to defund their police departments. The idea is that communities of color often don't feel protected by police and rely more on community services to stay safe. KREM 2's Amanda Rowley explains what that would look like in Spokane and what activists say this will accomplish.
That's how you stop the cycle that feeds itself on the victims of our minorities and poor.
Defunding the Spokane Police Department is one of the changes protesters called for at Sunday's demonstration. This is actually not a new idea. It emerged from protests against police brutality in Ferguson, Missouri in 2014. Pulling funds from police departments did not gain much traction then, but now it's returned to the spotlight.
To support the message of Black Lives Matter that the police need to be defunded.
So what does defunding police mean? Well, some activists would say it's slashing their budgets and redirecting the money to social services. Others want the funding removed and departments dissolved.
Yesterday really showed how our police department is supposed to respond and act, not with a heavy hand like we saw last weekend.
Dustin Jolly with Occupy Spokane says the local activist group wants to see funding for the Spokane Police Department redirected to public services, specifically mental health.
We need to look at other city services that are available in city programs. And when we look at 911 calls and the mass amount of information that comes in from that system, we see a mass need for mental health.
He says this would accomplish creating a resource-based system that is for the people. This would also include replacing police officers with peace officers. How likely will the idea of pulling funds from the police department be seriously considered? Spokane City spokesperson Brian Coddington gave me a long list of ways police are engaging and building positive relationships in the community, including implementing recommended changes from the DOJ and Citizen Use of Force Commission. As for funding social services, Coddington says the city is already doing this.
It's not necessarily a conversation about do we take from police input over here, or is it we like what we're doing and the progress we're making on the police department side. We need to find ways now to be able to fund these other programs to be proactive as well.
But protesters want to see more done and hope the Spokane Police Department makes broader change moving forward. Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
No damages or arrests were reported in downtown Spokane after thousands of people demonstrated yesterday. The protest was held in support of Breonna Taylor, a black woman who was shot and killed in March by Louisville police in her own apartment. The mayor says the protests were generally peaceful. There were armed individuals, but Spokane police officers say they didn't contact them because no crime was committed. And this morning looked a lot different than what we saw a week ago. Last Monday, we saw people fixing damaged storefronts and cleaning up canisters of tear gas. Before yesterday's protest, we saw businesses boarding up their stores, but again, no businesses were damaged in yesterday's peaceful protest. That's the good news there. Washington Governor Jay Inslee is addressing a second week of demonstrations, peaceful rallies, and violent protests that have taken place across the state for 11 days now. Our Regina On joins us live in the newsroom tonight with more. Regina?
Well, Mark, Governor Inslee thanked Washingtonians today on peaceful protests across the state. He emphasized today that Black Lives Matter. The governor says he will view things a bit differently with real commitment to change. He says he will conduct an independent review of the investigation and any charging decisions related to the death of Emmanuel Ellis, a black man who was killed while in Tacoma police custody back in March. The governor says he will be meeting with black leaders for meaningful legislation. Here are the three things the governor says will happen. First, he says there will be independent investigations for cases of alleged police misconduct resulting in death. There will be a state investigative unit totally separate from any other law enforcement. Second, he's going to rethink police force. He says he will look more broadly on police tactics, especially that of restrictions on chokeholds. And finally, he says police officers must report misconduct by their fellow officers.
My message is to police is that we recognize how difficult this job is. It's a tough job. It's a tough job when things are being thrown at you. It's a tough job when you got family home and you want to be able to come home to them.
And the governor also adding that the only way an officer can use the chokehold method, which limits oxygen to a person, is if an officer's life is in danger. The governor says it should only be used in very limited circumstances. The governor also talked about the state's efforts with coronavirus as well. He was joined by Secretary of Health John Wiesman, who was in the conversation. He says if you were at any of the protests to isolate yourself, get tested, especially if you're showing any type of symptoms. Live in the newsroom tonight, Regina On, KREM 2 News.
All right, Regina, thank you very much. We're going to switch gears now and talk about the weather because it was indeed very cool, very rainy start to our work week, but it was very hit and miss in different areas. Maybe some blue sky, maybe some rain, maybe some hail. So it really did kind of depend on where you were. Tom Sherry is joining us now for all the details. Hi, Tom.
You just described June weather in the inland Northwest. It just, boy, hit and miss. And pretty much from I-90 south, no rain. I-90 north, showers is what we're seeing, passing showers, especially northeastern Washington and northern Idaho. And then even into the Spokane area, we've seen some of that shower activity. Let's get a closer view. We've got some isolated thunderstorms occurring, some pockets of very heavy rain. Look for this all to begin to diminish in activity by the time we get to about 8 o'clock tonight. A lot of this is being forced by what little daytime heating we've actually gotten. It's been a windy day today, too. 16-mile-an-hour winds in Spokane, 20 in Wenatchee, 18 right now in the Moses Lake area. We'll look for drier weather late tonight and overnight, partly cloudy. Then another rain event begins tomorrow around 9:30 in the morning, and temperatures well below average with a high of only 60. You say, what's average? 71. 67 expected on Saturday, 66 Sunday, and yeah, a chance of rain at times. I do have some warm days, though, expected later this week. I'll check out your 7-day forecast just a couple of minutes.
All right, Tom, thank you very much. In other top headlines, Spokane County will not be moving forward to phase 3 of reopening. Today, Health Officer Dr. Bublitz said that Spokane County simply isn't ready yet.
Although eligible means that you have to meet the criteria, and as we have commented, we're not close to meeting those criteria. So we will not be moving to phase 3.
So under guidelines from the governor, there has to be a minimum of 3 weeks between each reopening phase. So for Spokane, that would be this Friday, June 12th. But our new case numbers are way too high, and we're still not testing enough. The number of new coronavirus cases went up by 250 here in the county in the last 2 weeks. That makes the total number of cases 763 with 35 deaths. So in order for Spokane to move on to phase 3, an application has to be approved by the local health officer, the local board of health, the local hospitals, and the county commission or council. And we also know that keeping those new case numbers down part of it is to wear a mask to keep yourself and others protected. So there's a new state requirement that says all employees have to wear a mask if they share a workspace. So it's also up to the employers to make sure that their staff have those supplies and are wearing them as needed. KREM 2's Shana Waltower has more from some employees and employers about what an adjustment that is going to be.
This includes everyone from grocery store workers to servers at small restaurants.
It's really hard to wear them, especially if you're a server.
The health order is to help slow the spread of coronavirus while still allowing businesses to stay open.
It's just something you have to do, so you just figure out how to do it and go forward.
Dave Jones, owner at Ferguson's Cafe, is now making sure all his employees are wearing their masks anytime they're inside.
I get the importance of it. It's not pretty.
Jones says it is making their daily operations a bit more uncomfortable.
You're not supposed to touch your face anyway, but with the mask, it's over the grill and stuff, it's a little, can get a little itchy.
One of his servers, Michelle Lyons, says it's also been harder to breathe while running around during her shift. Hearing and talking to customers has also been a struggle.
You can mess up easily in order.
This new guideline means that won't be changing anytime soon.
Our business is customer service, so the first thing that we do is we smile at people, and that's been really kind of difficult, I think, communication-wise.
Tammy Sevier, owner of the Old European Breakfast House, is now also making sure her employees are wearing their masks. She says they're requiring their customers to wear masks, so her employees need to set the example.
We can see them also being very safe. There really hasn't not been an issue with that.
Now, there are some exceptions to this rule, like those who don't come in contact with people while they're working, or if a worker is hearing impaired or has a health condition that would be affected by a mask. For more information about this requirement, you can text MASK to 509-448-2000. Shana Waltower, KREM 2 News.
All right, still to come tonight, a final goodbye from loved ones in Texas. Today we'll have more on the George Floyd Memorial that was taking place in Houston.
All along, in my view, Idaho has kind of led the nation.
Also, Governor Brad Little offering financial support to local public safety personnel, how the state will be using the CARES Act to help fund it. And we continue our big senior shout-outs tonight. We are highlighting Claire Dolan. She's a senior at Coeur d'Alene Charter Academy. She'll be attending the University of Arkansas this fall. She'll be studying biology with the hopes of becoming a physician's assistant. So congratulations to Claire. And please keep sending in those shout-outs. Text 2020 to 509-448-2000 and we'll send you the submission link.